Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Rich Castillo, who plays saxophone for the band the Callous Daoboys. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, Caffeinated crew? Today on the podcast, joined by Rich. He's a wind instrument player.
Saxophone, yeah.
Saxophonist. How are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about the intricacies of playing your instrument in a band that is famously noisy. So I'm pretty excited just to hear from your perspective how that's been. But first, let's dive into some coffee.
Sure. Yeah.
What you got going on over there?
Right now, we just got a new bag from Reanimator Coffee in Philadelphia. I forget. It's a Rwandan coffee. I forget where the region is. But yeah, it's a Rwandan coffee. I just took my first sip of it. Hold on. Yeah, it's awesome. I like it a lot. Yeah, it's good. I'm a huge fan of like African coffees and that area. That's my favorite. Like my wife is more of like a South American, Central American, and I'm Eastern Hemisphere kind of guy.
So is she for like the South Americans, is she more traditional or is she like on the funky side?
No, she's more traditional. Like she does like the natural process and stuff and like the fermented stuff, but like not as much as I do. I'm a huge fan of it. I don't know why. Just from like the first time I had it, I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And like that's been my favorite ever since. Mm-hmm. And now with like the anaerobic and stuff, like just like there's so many different kinds, and I'm like, it doesn't matter what you call it, like as long as it has that like funky taste, I'm down for it. But she does like to stick to traditional like wash process, Central American kind of stuff. That's her bag, like chocolatey, more like straight up like coffee taste, like the best kind of diner coffee like you can imagine. That's what she likes. But I like when it's like got the floral notes and I love the juicy and like the citrusy notes and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's funny, like whenever we do buy coffee, I end up like buying an Eastern bag and a Central American bag just to make us both happy.
That's how it was in my house for a while, because I am very much a third wave person where it's like the weirdest shit that you can find, I want to drink it. My wife is originally from Mexico, so her coffee taste growing up was very different than I guess when I was getting into coffee. So she was more used to the traditional Central American style, like nutty, chocolatey, very good, like you can get great coffee there.
I love it still. Yeah.
But yeah, for a while, I think we were buying like varieties of two different bags just to get her taste and my taste. But now we just have endless amounts of coffee at the house because I'm obligated to. So I'm happy that you brought up some anaerobic stuff, because I'm drinking, it's from Pirates of Coffee, which is out of Toronto. I think they're from Toronto area. But it's their Fizzy Cherry Cola. It's their Colombian anaerobic. And it is weird.
It sounds weird. Never heard of a coffee being named like that.
It's got like a kind of a cherry pomegranate, like grenadine taste.
Cool. That's awesome.
So it's definitely got that almost fermenty cherry flavor, right? But it's also got like a sweet syrupy like cola taste.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. It almost tasted darker than I expected, but it's good.
Does it still have like some of the Central American like taste or the Colombian taste, whatever you said?
Yeah, it does. I think it comes through on that syrupy note. A lot of those washed Colombians like traditionally had what do they call it, like molasses a lot of times. So it does have that, but I would say it's almost a bit sweeter than like a molasses flavor.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, because one of the things I find, like, even when you get, even well, I mean, with the like the natural processes that I get that are from that area, like at first it's like, yeah, like this is natural process, but then after it's like, okay, yeah, this is definitely Central American coffee. Like it goes
mhm.
back to that taste, you know.
Well, tell me what's your go-to drink?
Outside of coffee.
No, no, no. Like like let's say you go into a shop, like how would you
Oh, okay.
what would be your order?
I'm very much just like a black drip guy. Like I love good coffee and how it tastes on its own. Like if the coffee is good enough, then that's how I want it. You know,
Mhm.
like that's just how I drink it like 99% of the time, even if I go to a shop. Um, I guess it depends on the shop though. Like
It's
I know
true.
how to I feel like I know how to pick them, and like I know if I go in there and I'm like, all right, I know I'm not gonna like their drip, then I'll probably get like um an oat milk latte.
Mm,
You know, just there's something about um espresso and oat milk that combines wonderfully, and that I just love it. I don't know that milk specifically. Like I've been lactose intolerant for a long time, so like I just don't really. Every once in a while, if I'm feeling risky, I'll have a whole milk latte. But but uh, all the other milks I've tried, they're all right. But like something about an oat milk latte that I really love too.
yeah. Oat milk is a magical like drink. Uh,
Yeah.
with cereal, with coffee. I
Well, yeah,
feel
we
like
have it. That's what we keep in the house. So we've been for a while. We've had the Chobani. It's like extra creamy, and we were having that on Long Island, and then we moved up here, and we live like an hour from the factory, actually, from where
nice.
where we are now. So it's like it's crazy. Like we can get it whenever we want in the grocery store, and yeah, that's what we keep, and that's what we make our. If we ever make like a latte or a coffee drink, that's what we use. Yeah, cereal, baking, anything. We
Yeah, yeah.
usually use it. It's awesome.
Using it for cooking as well has been really
Hmm.
cool because it
Anything milk
yeah,
needs, I replace it with that. Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. Have you tried the this is like kind of off topic, but Silk made a plant-based heavy whipping cream or heavy cream.
I haven't tried silks. No.
It's
Yeah.
it was pretty good. I used it for I made some vegan pie for Christmas last year,
Nice.
and we were making it for like our friends that were vegan. And so I was like, how am I going to make whipped cream? And I
Yeah.
don't like the coconut stuff that much. It just is a little too weird. So I
Yeah.
got this whipping cream, sweetened it, and it was probably the best whipped cream like I've ever had.
That's awesome.
So stop drinking milk, people. Milk is weird. Don't drink it.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you have a favorite shop in your area or even in back in like Long Island?
Yeah, so we haven't found an area or shop up here yet. We've been here. We've only been here for a little over a year now,
Mhm.
and we're not in a very small town, but like it's a rural area, so like it's harder to come by. They're few and far between. But on Long Island, we that's where we get our coffee from Reanimator. Like my wife has a subscription. It comes like once or twice a month, and
Nice.
then um, in between those, because we go through so much, one bag every couple of weeks or every month was not enough. Um, we also buy from Southdown Coffee on Long Island. They're on like the North Shore. They have like three or four, maybe even five locations now. The guy's been doing really well and like opening a bunch of locations. Um, and yeah, it's one of my favorites for sure. There's definitely others on like throughout the country that I know and I like, but like to have it just come straight from Long Island is
Yeah.
really awesome. And like it is like fantastic, like I'm not just being biased because it's from Long Island. Like I've had a ton of coffee and it holds up with like some of the best that I've had. So um yeah, they're awesome. He's always getting new stuff, like always getting stuff that like getting stuff back in that I've loved. Um so it's really cool. Yeah, he's doing a really good job over there. The espresso is really awesome too. Like that was one of the first places that I had even that an oat milk latte.
Mhm.
We used to go to the shop to pick up the coffee. It was like, but we ended up stopping because even on Long Island, it was like a half an hour drive. We were on the south shore of Long Island, and it was on the opposite shore all the way up north, and you have to like drive specifically into the town of Huntington to go get it. So, but for a while we did, and like I would get an oat milk latte while we were there, and like Their espresso is fantastic, and with the oat milk is amazing. Yeah.
I've heard Southdown's name from just I'm in like a coffee chat with some people from
Cool.
Long Island. So they'll be like, post up at Southdown. I'm like, oh man, I need to get out. I need to get back over there to do a coffee crawl because it's been quite a while since I was in that area. And I know there's been a lot more addition. Like there's also Devotion, which
Okay.
is supposed to be like crazy good. But I've only heard a couple of stories. So
It's weird in the city though. Like there is a lot, but there's a lot of dark roast only places still,
mhm.
and I'm just not a fan. Yeah. I don't like it. So I feel like it's kind of hit or miss, like you kind of have to know. I feel like you have to do your research first and figure out where you want to go. Like if you just come across a place, the chances that the coffee's not that good is like
Mhm.
pretty high. Like it's happened to me and my wife tons and tons of times where we're just like, oh, cool, a coffee place, let's stop. And we got the coffee and we're like, oh my God, this is disgustingly dark.
As bad as it is, everybody's like, don't judge a book by its cover. When it comes to coffee, you can usually judge that book.
We're pretty good at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at this point where we have a pretty good handle on whether or not we even want to walk into a place.
Yeah. Like even Montreal, we get that because it's very traditionally rooted in like Italian and French style
Okay.
espresso. So a lot of places don't have drip because they're like, I can do an Americano. I'm like, please don't give me that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
It's
do
still going to be way too dark.
I'm gonna do a cortado, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you kind of have to do your research before you just like walk in anywhere here.
Yeah.
Which a lot of that's changed, but I know in New York, like people are doing some crazy things, but it does still have that like that deep rooted traditional espresso.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I don't know what it is about this area and dark roast and and not where I am, but anyway, Long Island
Mhm.
in the city, like dark roast and like Starbucks, like you throw a stone on Long Island, you hit a Starbucks, and I'm like, just don't care. And like the other coffee shops, the smaller coffee shops, it's like the same kind of thing. It's like there's a really good chance the coffee is either really too dark or not even good.
Mhm.
Like that's why Southdown, like that's why we were driving half an hour to Southdown because it was the only place on Long Island. There was closer places, but the coffee just wasn't good. Like
Yeah.
um even like so there was a place like that opened essentially down the block from where we lit like our apartment on Long Island when we moved out of our parents' house. And when it first started, it had I think it was called Greg's, right? Is that a thing? Greg's Coffee from the city, from New York City.
Yeah,
Does that sound familiar to you?
that sounds extremely familiar.
It's like second and a half wave where like it wasn't like extremely dark, but it wasn't like it wasn't very good either. It
Is it
wasn't
called
like
like Gregory's or something like
it
that?
might be Gregory's,
Okay.
yeah. Um so like it was good enough so that we were going there,
Mhm.
like it wasn't like it was close, but there wasn't one where we were buying our coffee, but we would go get some drinks there sometimes. And the cold brew was pretty good. It wasn't like jet fuel cold brew, so like yeah, I could tell you a story about that too.
Oof.
Um, but so and then eventually they were like, oh, we're doing our own roasts now, and I'm sure it wasn't their own. I'm sure they just bought, found a roastery on Long Island and put their name on it, but like
Right.
it just wasn't good, and we just eventually just stopped going there altogether.
That's that's been a trend as well here where it's like a coffee shop that is on like the more traditional but trying to look third wave, but they're definitely
They
like
were they were like, we're a New York City coffee shop, and it
right.
was
So we get that here, and then there's a big roastery in a part of the city called Union where they do like custom roasts for
Mhm.
people, but it's really just dark, oily, mixed
Yep.
with robusto coffee. Um, but we have another co-op here where you can actually like work with them to make your own roast. It's like a co-op, and they're doing some really really awesome things. Are you familiar with Scott Rao?
No.
He like wrote a book on like modern roasting.
Okay.
And him and another guy from Montreal like started the business together.
Cool.
And
Like that sounds
yeah,
cool.
it jump started
That
a lot
sounds
of
like
great stuff here.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Um,
I'm cool with. But like, yeah, so like, oh well, speaking of the jet fuel thing, so there my wife used to work at a coffee shop on Long Island that it served Hampton Coffee, which is a coffee company like out in the Hamptons on Long Island. It was the
Mhm.
same thing. They were second wave, and it was just like, you touch a bean and like you come away with oils on your fingers, like it was that dark. Um, and they would take that and like take the darkest roast and do that cold brew thing where they like had like the chemistry looking sets where it would drip down.
Oh,
But
Kofega.
yeah, but they would like put it so that it would drip like one drip like
Hmm.
every 30 seconds, and then like 24 hours later they had a thing full of cold brew, but it was like disgustingly dark. I mean, at the time it was free, so I was drinking it. And like I would take I would take a large away and like finish it and feel like I was just gonna like run through a wall. It was nuts.
Yeah.
And then that guy did almost something similar, but like even crazier, like opened up his own roastery to roast his own beans, because he had like two or three shops in that area, like in the South Shore, east, more a little bit out east area. And he opened up his own roastery to roast his own coffee, so that he didn't have to like he cut out the middleman of coffee, But like it was the same thing. It was
It was
still
still dark.
coffee. He didn't have any coffee taste. He just knew how to run business.
I mean, there's a lot of that too. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's hard to see through that, but
His shop was busy all day, every day. Like good for
yeah.
him. I was like, good for this dude. He knows what he's doing, but like the coffee sucks.
Yeah, it's like it's not for me.
No, definitely.
That's the nice way of being like it sucks. So yeah, that's coffee, man. It's like people don't realize how far the rabbit hole goes, and you meet people, they're like, I'm a coffee person, and you find
Oh,
out
that's crazy.
you have to like judge the level that they're at, where it's
Yeah.
like, can you give them an anaerobic coffee, or are they
Yeah.
gonna so
Yeah. Like I love coffee. And then you find out like they love going to Starbucks and consuming caffeine all day long. Not the taste of coffee, like, right. Hmm. That's kind of like how I got into coffee. It's like my parents are, they love the idea of coffee and drinking a lot of coffee, like, and they
yeah.
drink coffee all day. And that's how I started drinking coffee. But it's just like, my dad will, when I bring over coffee and make it, he'll drink it and he'll be like, "This is awesome, this is good." But my mom is like, "Yeah, I don't like this." And then like when I leave, they won't. It's not like they'll. My dad will go and find coffee like that. He goes right back to buying to getting Starbucks.
Nice.
That's what they keep in the house is just pounds of Starbucks.
I mean, at least it's not like, the coffee crystals.
Yeah, no, that's what they. Yeah, it's better than that for
Yeah.
sure. Like I remember the days, even like my grandparents, like when we would go to their house on Sundays and we would leave as a kid, they'd be like, "Who wants coffee?" And that's what they would pull out like the Folgers.
Classic.
Yeah, and like that was one of the ways I even started drinking coffee. It was just that was back then, being a kid and being like, "Sure, yeah, I want coffee," because I thought it was the cool thing.
The
And
adults
now
are drinking it.
30 years old, like if I don't have this, I'm not gonna have a good day.
Yeah, I think all of us are slightly addicted. It's managing the addiction is what the problem is.
Yeah,
Because
it's funny. I've actually been doing that lately. I guess as I get older, I'm finding that like I can't have as much caffeine as I was able to have anyway. Like I used to have this entire thing filled to the top with coffee, which is like 4 cups on the carafe thing. And then recently, like I found myself like at like 1 o'clock, still hadn't finished the cup of coffee. And I was like, if I keep drinking this, like my heart's going to come out of my chest. So like
yeah,
now I do like half to 3/4 of the cup of it full and drink that for the day and I'm good. And like even just recently, me and my wife caved and bought a bag of decaf, like with the Southdown delivery, because they have decaf. And we were like,
yeah.
well, like I don't want caffeine at 8 o'clock at night, but sometimes I do want coffee. I want the taste of coffee, and it's like, are we doing this? Are we really doing this right now? And yeah, and walked away and ended up ordering a bag of decaf, and it's doing exactly what we ordered it for. It's nice to be like, it's 8 o'clock. Like I feel like I can have some coffee and then have it, and still kind of feels energizing.
Mhm.
But like I'm not like, now I need to go jump through a wall and run a lap around the house.
It's more of like a dopamine kind of boost.
That's probably what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also using decaf for espresso martinis.
Okay.
That's I don't know if
That's
you're
something my wife has been talking about doing too. So
yeah.
yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Because I my wife says that I make great espresso martinis. That's not from me. I'm not trying to, but I was using decaf and it's like perfect because
That's awesome.
you get all the flavor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, buying decaf is an indicator, I think, of being an adult now. Like that's
Yeah, that's what it felt like. We were, like, we just turned 31, both of us, and I think
Mhm.
it happened like right before her 31st birthday is when we ordered the first bag, and it was like, yep, it's officially time. We're officially getting a little old, like starting to get over the hump of like being a real adult.
That's awesome. I was not expecting as much coffee nerd talk as we just went through. That was great. I always appreciate fellow enthusiasts that have no connection to working in coffee, just fucking
Yeah,
make
that's
it.
funny because like you mentioned that guy before, and I was like, no, I don't know who that is. Like, I'm not like huge into like the world of it. It's just like
Mhm.
I really love it, and like I follow some retailer like companies that roast and on, so I see like new stuff coming out and like the processes, but like it's for me, it's as far as like you know what the coffee is and how good it tastes, and like I
Mhm.
don't know who's doing what and behind the scenes. I'm like that's fine. When it gets to me, it gets to me, and I'll drink it.
That's great. That's I mean the coffee community could not like thrive without, people just being stoked on coffee and trying new coffee. So you and me, we're holding it down,
Yeah, I feel
trying
like
just buying the
it's the
shit.
same thing with music, right?
Yeah.
Like we like that's how we survive, is those people who like don't necessarily maybe they don't make music, or they do but not like for fun and like in their bedroom and stuff, and they don't know who a band's manager is, or like what they're doing in 2 months, but they know that like they put them on Spotify all day,
Mhm.
and then they go and buy some t-shirts, and it's like yeah, like we love those people.
Yes. just supportive. Don't even need
Yeah.
to know specifics, but
Mhm.
but you like it. That's great. You're not just a musician. You're not just a coffee enthusiast. You are an artist manager.
Yeah, yeah.
Is this a new development for you?
Relatively, like as far as it goes for managing someone else's band, like
Mhm.
when I joined my first band back in 2011, um, they had already like written an EP that was really good, and I was friends with them, so it was like kind of, and like I had gone away to school and came back, so as soon as they found out I was coming back, they were like, "You want to be in the band?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah." So I joined, and like we had all this good music that we're sitting on. We're a good band, and but like we just like show up to practices and play, and like no one's like doing anything to get the band out there. They're not
Right.
like, no one's in charge of social media posts, like reaching out to people booking shows, trying to get things going, and I was like, well, you guys mind if I do that? And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? So I started with that band. That band kind of like dissolved and reformed a few years later, and I kind of just fell into the same role, like took it on, and got a little more serious with that band. Like we were playing bigger shows, opening for bigger bands, and like we did a little tour and had a little bit of traction. So it was like, I got thrown into it even more a little bit. And then,
Right.
so yeah, I'd been technically self-managing bands for a long time. Um, and then I started going to school for music business because I was like, well, I really like to do this. This is what, outside of like being in a band and playing music, which is not going to be my only source of income pretty
Right.
much at any point in my life. Um, this is something I really want to do. Um, yeah, and then a little while later, that was like 2017. I started that, and then end of last year, or yeah, like a November last year, I reached out to my first couple artists, talked to them, and signed them. So I've been doing it officially since November of last year.
Nice. Did you find this is like a question for just me, honestly, because I've been intrigued by uh, like schooling for music business and the benefits of it. Do you find that it was like very beneficial to you?
It's funny. I literally just talked about this on that podcast that I was talking about last week. It's weird. It's weird. I kind of talked a lot of shit on it in the last podcast, and like, not that I think that I was wrong, but I do kind of think that there was a little more positive, and I got a little bit more out of it than I think I might have made it seem.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's like, you know, so I'm doing Berkeley online, and I joined them because I wanted to go to Berkeley because I kind of figured they were on like the cutting edge of
Right.
music. Right? They're Berkeley, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna be everything's gonna be new and relevant. But like I would say the majority of my classes are written at least 5 years ago.
So pre TikTok.
Yeah, literally
Yeah.
pre TikTok. Like most of my classes didn't even mention TikTok. Some of them mentioned MySpace. That's a relevant platform.
Okay.
Some of them talked about iTunes and Pandora, like irrelevant platforms. Yeah, so it's just kind of like in the last podcast, one of the people on it were like, well, like there is, a lot of principles and stuff that from the past that still apply today, and you can apply them and stuff. And like, yes, and like there was, it is, you do get what out of it, what you put into it at some level.
Right.
But it was just disappointing to be in a class and be like, man, like I know way more relevant information about this topic than this class is even teaching me.
Right.
Like I'm doing this class right now because I need to, and I need to fill this credit, but like I know more than this class is teaching me because I'm doing it now,
Yeah.
And it was crazy in that aspect. And then also just the way that like, like when you do school online, it's kind of like marketed to you to like, oh, well, you're doing it online, you can get it done when you need to get it done. And like, and you're, I'm a busy guy. I was at the time working 40 hours a week when I started. I have my wife, our dog, our house. I play saxophone. I play guitar. I have my own music, the Callous Daoboys. It's just like I have the time I have to fit this class stuff in, and like they'll try to make me do group projects and stuff. And like in one of my last classes, I had to project manage a team of people and then also participate in two other people's project teams that they were leading. Yeah. And I was like, what? Like
That's a lot.
I'm an adult with responsibilities. Like I'm not a 20-year-old kid in college whose only thing is doing school,
Right.
like, so there's frustrating and disappointing things about it, but
Right.
I learned a ton about, music publishing, which was awesome. And like, and that side of things, which I didn't really know much about. And now I'm like really interested in, and even just that project management class that I was talking about, that started like almost coinciding with me starting my management work with my two bands. So like immediately I was like, well, this class is awesome. Like just
Yeah.
immediately started applying things that I was learning right to what I was doing, So like there are a lot of things that I'm finishing up now, but there's a lot of things that I'm coming away with that are awesome, but it's just, yeah, it's, you should know more about it before you just dive into it. I feel like if I had gotten all this information prior to like, to committing to student loans and stuff, then like at least I would have had a more informed decision,
Right.
And
Yeah.
maybe I would have just been like, well, maybe I'll just start like doing any music industry job and trying to like work my way into what I want to do,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's just as viable a path as just like doing it and working your way towards what you want to do, and making good connections. So
That's it. Like the time that you're spending when you feel like you're in an irrelevant class, the time that you feel like you could be doing something actually productive. That's like
while I'm taking on thousands and thousands of dollars of debt.
Yeah, it's so frustrating, but
Yeah.
I understand. That's why I've always been curious because I did audio engineering. I did an internship through an online program, but they basically put you in a studio. So you have a certain amount of studio hours. And the online part, luckily I didn't have to do group projects, and it was like basically at your own timing that you could just do classes. But I felt like it was extremely invaluable, like the time in the classroom or the studio. It was like a real studio working with real clients. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I was like, this is awesome, but the degree is almost meaningless. Like if I don't actually spend the time and try to do this well, then I'm not going to get anywhere. So I've always wondered
that's so much of the music field, right? Whether or not you're you're right audio in audio, or you're in, management and behind the scenes, or you're an actual musician. Like the real thing is the actual practical doing it and getting the experience, yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, being kept away from it was kind of crazy.
Yeah. So sometime in February.
Okay.
And you manage Thought Crime as well?
Thought Crime, yeah.
Yeah. So you got some stuff coming up with them. Tell me a bit about the LP coming out.
Well, they just came out last Friday, sometime in February. There Goes. Yeah, came out last Friday. Reception seems pretty awesome so far. They just played a show. They played 2 nights ago at New Brooklyn Tavern in Columbia.
Nice.
And like almost 100 people showed up, and they had a really good time. It was awesome. They played last night at Anchor Coffee in
Yeah,
Winston-Salem,
Anchor.
which is really cool. And then they're playing tonight at Petra's in Charlotte, where Tristan's from, the like main guitarist songwriter guy. I'm not sure where the bassist is from. I mean, I've known the drummer since 2014 or something like that. So he's the only reason. So I know he lives in Columbia, so it's like they got that area. But so yeah, it's cool. They're playing like hometown shows a couple times on this tour. So it's, or not tour, but little run. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, like instrumental prog rock, prog metal. I think the album's fantastic, and I'm not even like a huge fan of that genre.
It sounds great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. It's yeah, like I said, like so for years, like really the only prog or instrumental rock bands that I was listening to were probably like Animals as Leaders. I don't even know if I could think of another one that
Chon,
I've really.
did you ever get into
I was
Chon?
into them back in the day,
Yeah,
but like in the past like 5 years, I haven't touched their music. So like it's just not something that I've been huge on for a long time. I was bigger, when like what's that Scale of Summit album that came out a long time ago with like the dinosaur made out of grass looking album cover? I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I was huge on that album. So like it was a genre that I'm familiar with, but just kind of fell out of. And so, like I said, I've known the drummer for a long time. He was in a band called Trees on Mars, which is like another like instrumental, progressive, like math rock, but like a little leaning towards like the heavier stuff. I know they're hard to describe. But I became friends with them. They asked me to play saxophone on their album, actually. And like, that was like the first opportunity I ever had to do like a guest solo, so
that's cool.
And a lot of stuff has come from since. So I kind of felt like I tell them all the time, like, I feel like I owe a lot to them. So, when I made a tweet about like, hey, like, I really want to get into management. Like, if you know anyone who's looking, let me know. And he texted me and he was like, hey man, I don't know if you know, but I'm in this band. And the Tristan, the main guy, he's looking for potentially someone to manage the band. So, if you're interested, I'll give you his contact info and you guys can talk. So I talked to him, and he's a really good kid, and he's really driven. Like he's like, I saw a lot of myself in the way that like he wants to make his career happen. Like he's working jobs that are making him connections or are stuff that like he can do when he comes back from tour or even take on tour and stuff like that. Like he's going to make it happen no matter what, and that's the vibe that I got off him when I met him. And I was like, well, that's what I want. I'm like, I can't take on someone who's like, who can make it happen or not. And it's got to be someone whose whole thing is making it happen. And then I listened to the album and I was like, this is fantastic. Like, this is legitimately good music, and I was like, and, even like, he was like, it might not feel like I'm at a place where I need a manager, but like, I kind of feel like it would be helpful. Like he was in talks with a pretty big prog label that's very interested in the band, but kind of felt like they're not at a place to sign yet, but like want to keep in touch. So I was like, okay, like, this is real. Like, this could be legitimate. And I was like, let me, it would be cool to get in on the ground floor, help this kid do as best as he can and see where we can go. And then, whether or not I'm with him 5 years from now and he's doing amazing, I just want to see him doing amazing because, he deserves it, so it's cool. It's cool to be working with him. And then, yeah, and then Thought Crime, not Thought Crime. I'm from Long Island, so it's very hard for me to make the distinct difference. Not Thought Crimes. That's a different band.
That's a different band.
Yeah, Thought Crime, like that word, that internet word that was around for a long time. THOT, Thought Crime.
Which stands for? No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't ask them that, so I just thought it was a cool name. Yeah, so that's a lot different. It's Cyber Grind. It's called.
It's sick. It's when I was like, I didn't know if you were in the band or just managed them, but that band, I think it potentially could explode.
I think so too. There's another band that I'm like very happy to be with, at this level and be with them while they grow and watch them grow. I know, and I know it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they're really good at like building their own community too online, which is crazy. Not a lot of bands are good at that on their own. Like they make really good music that reaches people, but eventually they get someone to help them with that. But like, I feel like they've been doing such a good job of that on their own that it's just gonna like just gonna keep happening, and obviously the music's really good, so it's just gonna keep keep going. So like it's cool to have a band that's got both of those things going for them. And yeah, obviously just the music is so good. And it was cool because like so I had known of them just because of like them and the Daoboys were friends on Twitter. A lot of interacting. So I was like, oh, let me check out this band. This band is sick. And then we started following each other, interacting a bit. And then we played Philly last June, and they were one of the openers on the show. So I was like, oh, sick. Like, I'm glad I get to see this band. They were awesome. And then, we just interact over Twitter for a long time and then find out that they need a manager. So I was like, that would be awesome. So I reached out and like, I was like, and yeah, just worked out, so it was really cool. Yeah. Now we're working on their first ever tour this June. Well, not their first ever tour, but their first tour as a full band. Kez, the producer from the UK, is flying over to the US and they're doing a full band tour this June.
That's sick.
It's going to announce soon. So I'm sure by the time this podcast comes out, it'll either be announced or it'll be about to be announced. So it's fine if it comes out before. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. June 10th through the 19th. It's going to be East Coast and some Midwest shows.
Okay. They're not hitting Montreal though, are they? Man, I would love to see that.
I know they want to play New Friends, I think it's called, in Toronto. Not this year, but next year. So we'll if that works out, then there'll definitely be some Canada dates for sure.
Yeah, that'd be like, I feel like there's a scene for that here. There's a lot of like the Gen Z. I hate feeling like an old fucking boomer saying this, but like that they're like such a Gen Z band.
For sure.
Like Omerta also. And I'm so here for that fucking sound, like where it's
Omerta is great too. They're fantastic.
Where it's like just this mix of like all their influences, but it works.
Yeah.
So Thought Crime, if Thought Crime and Omerta did a thing,
both of those bands can just like run through like multiple genres in one song.
Oh yeah,
and still have it be cohesive and awesome. It's fantastic.
Have you heard the new track that Omerta put out recently?
No, I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I heard it's fantastic.
It's insane. Like insane. So yeah, when I listen to like Thought Crime, that's immediately comes to mind is a lot of that like hyper pop with like grind and it's very Slipknot-y in some places. So it's very cool to hear a lot of that just blended together into this madness. So as soon as I can see that, it would be great.
Yeah, it's cool. Like I didn't even see them with like the full band. They have these like factions around the country. Like Haley, the singer, lives in Philly, so they have like one or two people she plays with in that area. Mel, the guitarist, and Dot, the drummer, live in Illinois, and they have a couple people that they play with over there. Kez is probably at some point going to start playing some shows on her own in the UK, just like DJ style, So there's this different factions, and like I saw, actually at the time it was funny. I was lucky enough to see Mel. She I think took like a train or something from Illinois to Philly to play that show with the Daoboys. So it was her, Haley, and they have this dude Tyler who plays bass with them on the East Coast, and it was just them and a drum backing track, and it was still amazing. And I was like, this band is awesome.
That's so cool, man. Like
Yeah,
that's so fucking cool. I love
yeah. Now
that
we're
style
gonna
of,
see them put it all together this summer too.
yeah.
I'm
But
excited.
like just the fact that you're able to play shows like in separate places under
Yeah,
the same name.
they played 2 shows on the same day. Uh,
It's
like in December, something like that. They played a show in Virginia and a show in Chicago.
see that's like that's why Berkeley got to change your curriculum because
That's the crazy thing. Yeah. It's like I was doing it in the middle of pandemic and like, it's like the music industry isn't the same
it's different. It's
two
so
months
different.
ago than it
Yeah.
was 2 years ago, let alone 5 years ago when this course was written.
It's
Like the world is flipped upside down on its head, not even the music industry, you know?
yeah.
So yeah.
Even here, like it's not completely different in Montreal, but the scene and like the industry as a whole feels so different now because
Mm-hmm.
like the way that bands are coming up and just like getting big, it's crazy. Like it nothing. I don't think anything is the same that it was post pandemic at all.
Yeah.
So, well, I hope that everything keeps going well with the artist management. Super stoked to see what happens with that Thought Crime tour. That's
Thanks.
gonna be sick.
Yeah. Very excited.
And the bands that we're talking about, I'll drop links in the description for the episode. So be sure to check them out if you haven't heard them. They're sick. Good bands.
Thank you. Thank you.
You play saxophone in the Callous Daoboys.
I do.
Why?
Why? Oh, who knows? Who knows?
No, I mean,
Why do I play a monophonic instrument in a polyphonic band that plays the most ridiculous note combinations that you can come up with? I don't know. I don't know why. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know which note to play right now. I'm just going to play a note and stick with it, you know?
it's amazing.
But yeah, I mean, I've always just been kind of interested in like, even like when I was a kid, just like music that kind of pushes boundaries, whether or not I knew it, you know, like one of my first, like I grew up, my parents' favorite artist is Prince. So I grew up like a huge Prince fan, and like you know, there's just multiple genres in even a song of Prince's, you know, like, so like, I guess I've just kind of been I've been listening to good music for a long time and music that kind of pushes stuff. And then I saxophone was just always something I've wanted to play, you know, like when I was a kid, they had come around with the band, like the band that's like 2 years older than you, and they show you the instruments. And I was like, that's what I want to play. Funny enough, they gave me trumpet. So I did it for the first 2 years. And then after that, we were heading into middle school and I was like, I still want to play saxophone. And they were like, all right, fine, take some lessons over the summer and you'll be able to play. So I did. And then I played in band ever since in school. And I never really applied it to rock throughout school. It was just kind of something I loved doing in band and like something I loved like just playing and getting better at. And then yeah, so then I ended up joining my first like legitimate band, I would say, like in 2011, the band I was talking about before. Like I was in like, you know, classic rock cover bands and other crappy garage bands, but this is like the
Chicago
first
cover bands.
Yeah, well, no, I mean on guitar actually.
Oh, okay.
I played guitar for just about as long as saxophone actually.
Okay.
Almost, I think about the same year. Yeah, my first band I was in, technically I was 13 years old in like a pop punk cover band. We were playing like Green Day and
everybody,
Phot Credit and some Taking Back Sunday.
Any good Charlotte in there?
We definitely it wasn't on our set list, but we played it like when we were just like messing around,
joking around,
or like, you know, yeah, like it was in like my best friend played drums and it was in his house in his bedroom, and we had, you know, other friends. We had a guy who played bass and a guy who played guitar, and like we would just like learn a ton of songs and play them together in his bedroom all day, whether or not we were going to play them live, you know. So there was definitely some good Charlotte in there. Mostly Green Day, though. That was like our favorite band. American Idiot had come out that year, so we were able to play like every American Idiot song together. And we would just like rip the whole album all day. And then So then eventually, yeah, I was, in those kind of bands. And then that band in 2011 was like my first like real dive into like actual, it was like original metalcore. Um, and then when that band fell apart, it was me and the guitarist from that band who like reformed the band, and we made a new band. Like it was still metalcore, but now we were like, we wanted to be like more progressive, like we were taking in different influences. We were doing, we were messing with time signatures and like and patterns and stuff like that, having a good time. And eventually it was like, well, if we're going to be a progressive band and we want to do whatever we want to do, like I want to play saxophone in the band. Um, so yeah, like even with that band and our first EP, there's like one saxophone part. It was nothing that I played live. It was just like another layer on the
Mm-hmm.
album. But then we were in the middle of writing a new album when that band fell apart, and there was like a couple songs where like I legitimately had my sax on stage with me, and I would just like put my guitar on my back and pick up the saxophone and start playing that. So yeah, I was like working it into our music. Um, I did that feature on Trees on Mars album,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was like one or two more bands I think that had asked me to do some stuff, and then it was a similar situation with Thought Crime where I'm friends with this. I grew up playing with this band Cryptodira. They're from out east Long Island, and me
Mm-hmm.
like so they were like the out east prog band, prog metal band, and my band was the Nassau, not west. There's more west of
Yeah.
us, but our side of the island prog band. Um, and Cryptodira had gone on tour and hit Atlanta and met the Daoboys. So just through Twitter mutuals, I ended up talking to the Daoboys, talking to Carson. And then one day they hit me up out of the blue and they were like, hey, the guy we usually go to for saxophone is ghosting us. Would you want to do, we have a couple parts that we need a saxophone for. Would you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. I liked the band. I liked them. And so I was like, sure. And it ended up being the two or three things that I did on Die on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, just like, hey, we're writing for album 2. Do you want to? There's a couple spots I'm thinking of. Do you want to be on that too? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then yeah, eventually they were like, hey, do you want to just like be in the band now and like write with us for everything else and be in the band? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So it was just like it was a long time coming, but it's definitely the first time with that style of music. Like
Mm-hmm.
even with the prog stuff, I wasn't necessarily like following metal parts or playing much metal. Like it was more like we had this like jazzy section where I was just kind of improvising, and then like there was like one or two written parts, but they weren't really heavy and they weren't like too chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this was the first time I joined a band where I was like, I've never played this kind of music on saxophone before ever. Like this is gonna be crazy.
People, I feel like when you hear like, oh yeah, I play saxophone in like a proggy mathcore heavy band, people are like why? But when you hear the parts actually like on recording and live, like it makes so much sense. Like if it wasn't there, I feel like you would know, like you would notice that
Yeah.
it wasn't there. So it's definitely weird, but so good, and it's perfect for the Daoboys. I feel like so. When Dan was telling me that you were stepping in like to join the band, like I think Dan said that you had just like started touring or something with them.
Yeah, I did a tour last year. I did the Rollo Tomasi Cryptodira
Yeah,
tour. I
yeah.
did that entire tour with them. Like it's still kind of a case by case basis. Like, there's already 6 like concrete members of
Main,
the band,
yeah.
right? Like, and then now things are getting bigger. They want to bring a front of house guy to make sure we sound good. There's a 7th guy. Like, do we need the saxophone for this run? Do we need to take an 8th person out and make sure we have the room for them? Like the per diem for them, like, do we need to, like, do I need to take 3 weeks away from my house and my wife and my dog for this particular tour? Like, it's kind of like that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good for both sides, I would say, like, cause I'm a little bit older and like I have, a little bit more reason to stay in my house, I think. Um, but like as we start writing more and more, it's like, okay, like they won't be able to play the song
Yeah.
unless I'm there. So it's gonna turn into definitely a more. I'm gonna be touring with them more as time goes on. But like right now, it's kind of like and I'm not. It's not a bad thing for me. Like I said,
Mhm.
like it works out for both sides. They don't have to spend the money, and I don't have to, make sure that my wife is good in the house by herself for 2 weeks. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, touring is fun. Like there's parts of it that are fun, but then you also like, yeah, you have responsibilities, especially like hitting 30. It was like, oh man, like I do not want to leave my house for
Yeah.
weeks at a time. Like,
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, this is where we pay to live, and we really like it here.
yeah,
So it's like it's easy to be like, this is where I want to spend my time.
I don't want to
And like
be
I
in a
do, I
van
do
with no,
love it. It was that September tour was incredible,
right.
and like I'll gladly do it again any day. But like as long as if they can't take me, then I'm not gonna be like, what the hell, I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'll do the next one.
How it has the like, because I noticed you play kind of off the stage in most cases because like you said, there's basically 8 people. It's almost Slipknot,
Yeah,
uh,
we're
like
getting
on
there.
stage. So, uh, how is the hearing? Like, how does that work? Because y'all aren't running in ears.
No, I think I'm in a bit of a different situation than everyone in the band, except for maybe Carson. Um, but even still, not exactly. I like my sound comes from me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it starts right here and like goes all the way through the instrument that I'm holding. Like it just like it resonates throughout me, and like even with my earplugs on, since it's happening right here, like I can just hear it in my head.
Oh,
Like
nice.
I can hear me, and I can like I can do a pretty good job of like intonating and stuff on stage, even without in ears right now. Like as things get bigger and louder, I'm sure I'll take that back and be wearing in ears as much as possible. But like right now, playing small stages and stuff, like it's just so loud, and my instrument is so coming from me that it's pretty easy to hear myself and make sure that I'm with the band.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, the band is so loud that like I can hear them over me playing. Like if I'm not like off the stage, I'm usually standing right in front of Marty, our drummer. So at least
Yeah.
the thing I'm hearing is keeping me in time, and I just have to know my parts.
I hadn't thought about like, yeah, the resonation coming from in you. So it's almost working like how a singer or vocalist would be able to hear with
Right. That's
earplugs.
right. That's why I said right. Like Carson is probably the closest one to
Right.
that. I think a little bit less so because like it comes out of your mouth and like stops there, where like I'm blowing through an entire instrument,
Mm-hmm.
like so, and I have resistance, so like I feel like it probably comes back at me a little bit more, but like I'm sure, yeah, like with yeah, something like earplugs or in ears on is probably a very similar experience.
Yeah. So that's such a cool thought, like just thinking of how the human body is designed. But yeah, like,
Crazy, yeah.
it's insane, that you can play in a band that is usually around 100 dB
Yeah.
playing through fucking, amps, and you're a saxophone, but you can still hear. That's so cool. Um, being off playing these smaller venues, in the chaos that can ensue during a
Mhm.
Daoboy set. Has there been a close call?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think like so we played AMH on Long Island in June. Like that was like that was the kickoff date of the Greyhaven Limbs tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to play the first 3 dates with them because they played Long Island, Brooklyn, and Philly. So like that's a venue that I played like more than I could ever count.
Right.
Like so that bar has been around forever, and I played my very first show with that pop punk cover band at 12, 13 years old at what was it was called Village Pub South at the time, but it's the same exact venue. It's
Right.
just changed hands and names and been renovated a little bit. So yeah, I've been playing that venue since I was like 13 years old, and it was like first time I played a full saxophone set there, and it was the first time I got to play with the Daoboys there. It was really awesome.
That's sick.
But it's a pretty small stage. They had backlined at least one of the headliner bands. So like we were already pushed to the front of the stage. And so, yeah, I was just like I was just standing in front of, it's like a high rise stage. So it
Mhm.
probably came up to me like here, and, and I'm the only one on the floor, but it was fine. But like, yeah, like the crowd was like literally like there, like in front of
Right.
my face essentially. And I'm holding this like giant could be weapon, made of brass.
Right.
And so I'm sure they had a lot of close calls, more than I did that night, but I wouldn't have known because I was too busy playing. And if they got hit, they just need to move. Um, so, but there's been a couple times where I've almost gotten jabbed by Amber's bow, and it might have actually happened, but it didn't really hurt. I can't remember, but there was a lot of close calls where like I saw the point of her bow like in my eye, like it could have been my eye. Yeah, because like so on that summer tour, like there was, I think there was maybe one stage where I had to be off the stage, but I was also doing the samples, like I was triggering the samples at that on that tour. So like I had this like keyboard stand set up and like my laptop and a MIDI controller and all my sax stuff. So like I generally had a spot on stage,
Mm-hmm.
and it was right in front of the drummer, and Amber's right next to me. So like there was, and like her bow goes in the direction of where I'm standing.
Right.
So it was, yeah, there was definitely a lot of close calls with that where it was like, woo, I almost just got my eye taken out.
Yeah.
But like, there's somehow this like innate like feeling of knowing where your bandmates are, and like there hasn't been any big collisions or anything. It's like I've noticed it since my earliest bands. Like I remember the same kind of thing. Like I took a look to my right, and like the bass's headstock went like past my face, like as close as it possibly could without connecting with me. and, like,
My God.
and being like, huh, like that just missed. Yeah.
That could have been bad.
And then like remembering just like never really bumping into them, and people being like, yeah, you guys somehow know where you are. And, it's like something that comes with just like playing this kind of music for a long time, is just
Mhm.
like somehow knowing that like where your space is and where other people's space is, and like just staying out of it just ever so slightly.
Orchestrated chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
You have like spidey senses. It's good.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Celebrity Therapist has been out for a bit. Are you guys writing? Is there a record for 23, 24?
Yeah. So
I don't know if you're
I
allowed
don't
to
know if
speak on this.
it was already like teased, and even like an article written about. So I'm sure I'm not revealing anything by saying
Okay.
like, yeah, we're working on an EP right now.
Okay.
I'm not even actually, I have actually no idea when it's supposed to come out. All I know is that, yeah, because there were other plans, and then I heard, and then all of a sudden there was a new song sent to me with how quickly can you get this done? And then I was like, oh, are we still doing this? And they were like, no, 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 no. Now we're doing an EP, and I need this done by this date. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, there is an EP being worked on, but that's all the details that I know right now. Is that we're writing it right now. Like I even just before this, I had wrapped up something last night, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to do harmonies on that. So like I was brewing coffee and writing the harmony for a part for a new song.
That's cool. I love that you have your setup there, so you can just basically track everything. They don't even have to bring you to a studio or.
Yeah, I have a pretty good mic. And yeah, I mean, I think our music is loud enough, and right now where like room noise is not that big a deal. Like, and like my rooms aren't like crazy loud. Like if you like really listen and take a really close listen, you can hear it. And like someone who's like, if I got hired to do something and I sent it off, they might be like, why does it have room noise on it? But like, it's a band that I'm a part of, so I haven't heard anything about it yet. But yeah, I have a pretty good mic. I have a pretty good interface, and yeah, even the stuff on Celebrity Therapist was just recorded at my apartment on Long Island before we moved up here. Same mic and interface setup, but yeah, I just recorded it, sent it off. They were like, "Yep, sounds awesome."
It's amazing.
They ended up on the album. I'm imagining that's what's going to happen for this EP. I think because there was other plans and a studio mentioned before I heard about the EP. So I would imagine that, yeah, I'm just gonna, I'm sending off demos right now. I'm gonna, recut them and make sure that they're how I want it to sound. Right now, it's just like, here's the idea. Let me know if you need any changes. But I would imagine that after this EP, especially whatever the next like bigger LP release would be, we're gonna go to a studio and like everyone's gonna record in the studio, including me. Yeah.
That's always fun for like collaboration, and especially like adding in elements like the violin and the saxophone. That's going to be cool to have everybody there to kind of hear it out and feel the vibe of it.
It's definitely something I'm excited for. Like with Celebrity Therapist and Die Mars, like it was just kind of like, this is the song we would like you to play on. This is what we're thinking. And then like a little bit of emails back and forth or text back and forth, like, yes, this was cool. Can you change this up a little bit? And then just, that was it. And then I got the final product back. So yeah, I'm excited to be part of like a little bit more part of the process for sure. Like to be in the room and like, not even just with my parts, just to be around for other parts and like some idea, like, everyone hears things differently, right. So like, to be able to be part of that input is going to be really fun.
Yeah. So stoked to hear what comes out. We'll be looking out for it when there's more info, but yeah, I mean, that's really cool. Super cool that you're like a part of the band and not just, like sending in solos and stuff. So, yeah. Excited to see what the Callous Daoboys, what instrument they add next.
We'll see. There's a tweet like every like 6 months or so of like, who plays a weird instrument, non-conventional instrument, and then like it'll get added somewhere along the way. Whether or not it's like a demo that gets pushed out to the next release or it comes out in 6 months, it'll end up on there somewhere.
Sick. I love that just level of creativity is like, we're just gonna put it in whatever. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of what drew me to the band. It's like, that's kind of what, we were playing prog metal, not mathcore, but it was the same kind of thing. It was like, we weren't afraid to just do whatever we thought might be cool. It wasn't like, well, what if people don't like this? Or what if it sounds weird? It doesn't, if it sounds good if it sounds weird, exactly. Good. That's what we're going for. Exactly. Yeah. So it's cool, like to be in that same kind of environment where like, it's just kind of like, what do you got? Like, like it's not like this is what we need. And like, there are, they give directions, like this is what we were thinking, but it's not like this is what we need, record it, it's like, yeah. And like, and what else would be cool? And even like, I was working on a demo and there was this one part that was like very Latin inspired. And I was like, they didn't ask for anything here, but I'm going to write a 3-part horn harmony based on like a Latin horn part, and like just wrote this like 3-part harmony, and it sounded like like a Latin band with a trumpet blaring over it, and I was like, this sounds dope, and I sent it off and they were like, holy crap, that's awesome.
That's amazing. See, this is why every band in some form needs like a brass or wind player to hear it, like just be like, right. Where can we put some shit? Some non-conventional orchestration.
Yeah.
So well, that's really awesome. Stoked to see what the Daoboys are doing, everything that you got going on with the artistry, management. But I really enjoyed talking to you, Rich. I just have one last question for you.
Sure.
What's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
Favorite city?
Yeah.
Long Island, New York. Like, yeah, that's where I get my coffee. That's where I've gotten my breakdowns for over 10 years now. Yeah.
Shout out AMH.
Shout AMH, out. Yeah.
Shout
Amityville,
out all the bands. Let's do Koyo. Is Hangman still around?
I'm not sure, but yeah. Hangman,
Moontooth.
My boys.
Shit, there's too many bands from Long Island. Anyway, shout out Long Island.
Good source of beans and breakdowns.
That's it. It's like the number one source of beans and breakdowns because there's so many people. Well, Rich, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
Excited to see what things do.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take care.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say huge thanks to Rich for hanging out on the podcast. Be sure to check out Thought Crime and sometime in February. Also, check out the Callous Daoboys. Their album Celebrity Therapist is available on all listening platforms. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.